Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends, fellow Singaporeans. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in Marsiling, which was part of Sembawang GRC, which I had the privilege of contesting in back in 2006. Ever since 2011 general elections, the SDP has been working very hard. And pretty much right after the elections, within days, we set about working for you again. We reorganized ourselves into units and started work right away. Now, within 2 months after the last elections, the SDP went to several blocks in Marsiling, just not too far from here, remember. And we paid home visits to low-income families. We found out what some of their dire needs were, and we set about helping them. For some, we wrote letters on their behalf to the town council to appeal for the lowering of rental charges for their rented homes, their Tabang rented homes. For others, we brought supplies such as milk powder for their little kids, toddlers, babies, whose mothers could not quite afford the milk powder, which, as some of you may know, can be quite exorbitant. And we brought also other basic essentials to one family. We saw that we saw that they were sleeping on their couches. And so we went about, looked for a bed, and we even brought the bed to them. So we have been on the ground helping people. Even up to last month, SDP members provided food parcels, packet food, for the low-income residents in Marsiling. So the SDP has been working very hard in this area. Now, aside from reaching to residents on a one-on-one basis like what we've been doing, we've also come up with alternative policies to the PAP's policies that are not working anymore for Singaporeans. Now, our policies are not manifestos that have just been created during the elections campaign season to give lofty information about what the party will do if we get elected into parliament. No, not manifestos. What we have are real, well thought out, well-researched policies put together by professionals to come up with real practical solutions to the problems that Singaporeans like you and I are facing. In 2012, we came up with our healthcare policy, which was put together by one of our candidates, Dr. Paul Tambaya, together with his team of doctors. We also put up our housing policy, population paper to address the problem of overcrowdedness. And we also came up with a policy on the economy and education. In the 1990s, the SDP was the first opposition party to bring up the issue that's very close to your hearts, the CPF withdrawal issue. At that time, in the 1990s, so some 20 years ago, the minimum sum was at 80,000 and the withdrawal age 55. 20 years later, our minimum sum now is what? 160,000. Withdrawal age 65. Now you ask yourselves, why has the ruling party had such a free hand in increasing our minimum sum, making it so hard for us to withdraw any of our money? It is because in Parliament, you haven't had strong voices to speak up for you. It is because our current MPs have been practically silent on this issue. Now I can assure you that should you put our candidates, the SDP candidates, into Parliament, they will be relentless in helping us bring back your CPF money, our CPF money. Now, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about something that's close to my heart, something I know a little bit about, or more about rather, the education system in Singapore. I know many of you who are parents of school-going children are very concerned, anxious about the stress your children are going through. Now, I was a teacher. I was teaching in the government in the secondary school for more than a dozen years. I know how hard things can be for your children with a rigid examination system, with a focus on the academics, the constant tests, the exams, the remedials, the supplementary classes, and tuition. We know as parents how hard it is to see your kids struggle, how hard you struggle with them, the pressure that you go through with your kids, how you worry yourself sick about them. Now the SDP understands this because we too are parents, we are grandparents, we are aunts, we are uncles, we are educators. Now this is why the SDP has been relentless, we've been tireless, we spare no effort in advocating for changes in our education system. Again, we were the first party to call for smaller class sizes. We advocated also for the removal of the one-sitting PSLE. We advocated for a more holistic approach to include the physical, emotional, and psychological developmental aspects of a whole person. Now, Singapore's education system focuses way too much on cognitive development. That is, we have very much a result-oriented system to the detriment of physical and socio-economic, emotional development. Now in our 70-page, remind you, 70 pages, not 7 pages, 70-page policy paper, which just goes to show how extensive a research we've done. The SDP has come up with alternative proposals to the education system. We have advocated for a system that cultivates and develops creative minds. We want our children to be able to have depth in their thinking. We want them to think insightfully and independently, and simply not just regurgitate what they read of the textbooks. Our education paper explores strategies to build confidence in our students. Confidence. That's something that many of our students, many of our kids lack. We've got to instill this in them. And that cannot be done through rote learning or 读死书, as they would say. We need to identify their passion, their strengths, their interests. Now the SDP also in our paper has plans for smaller class sizes. Now anyone with half a brain would know that in a smaller class size, we're able to give better attention to students. At the moment, I believe our class sizes average about 40. The SDP is advocating to halve that size. Now, I remember to my shock that one of our former ministers had said that class size doesn't matter. Now, if that's the case, then why is it that the gifted programs have a much smaller class size? In our paper, we're also advocating for the one-sitting PSLE to go. Now, parents, you know that one sitting of PSLE, that's 3-4 days, determines your child's which secondary school, which stream your child goes to. That puts too much stress on a single exam, on a 12-year-old, and they expect it to perform on that one sitting. No, that has to change. That puts too much stress, too much pressure, not just on the students, but also on parents.
And assessments should be varied and aggregated to determine the child's overall performance. Now there are many, many more. There are myriad of recommendations that the SDP has put forward in a comprehensive 70-page policy paper. That we have offered some alternatives to make school much less stressful and indeed less traumatic for your children. The SDP's more holistic, more inspiring, more creative approach to education is what we will advocate for you if or when you put our candidates into Parliament. But ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, the elections is not about the SDP. It is not about the PAP. It's not about your candidates. It is about you. Any election, every election is about the citizens, you and me. It is about your jobs. It is about your CPF, your housing issues, your medical fees, your children's education, the quality of your life. It is about your family, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. Put the SDP's candidate into Parliament. Make them work for you. Make the SDP candidates work for you. Because dear friends, you deserve better. You deserve people who work for you and not a government that treats you like a digit. So friends, come Friday, cast your ballot. Vote for the people whom I promise will work for you. Vote for the SDP. Thank you and good night.